This is lesson 1-6 warm-up for secondary 1 math. In this video, we will review solving multi-step equations and finding the least common denominator. So the directions state, write answers in set notation, write non-integer answers as simplified fractions, no decimals or mixed numbers. So to solve a multi-step equation, I first begin by drawing a line down from the equal sign. Since an equation is a statement of two equal expressions, to solve an equation, we have to do the same thing to both sides of our equation, or to each expression. So the first thing is I'm going to subtract 3 w's from both sides of our equation, which will get all w's to the right side of our equation, and we're left with a 2 on the left side. So 7 w's minus 3 w's is 4 w's. Then we're going to divide by 4, since we have 4 times w to undo it, and we end up with 2/4, or we could simplify that to 1/2 is equal to w. Now writing it in set notation, we do a brace, then we do w such that w equals 1/2. Always write it in its simplified form. Okay, so number 2, again I'm going to draw that line down from my equal sign, and I'm going to do the same thing to both sides. In this equation, we could subtract 5a's from both sides and work through our equation that way, or we can add 7a's, which is what I'm going to do to both sides. So we end up with here with 6 equals 2, but we have 5a's plus 7a's, which is 12a's. And now we're going to subtract 2 from both sides, so we get 12a's by itself. So we have 12a's is equal to 4. Now if we divide by 12, we're going to get a is equal to 4 divided by 12. That's a fraction, but can we simplify it? It does. It simplifies to 1/3. So in set notation, we would write this as a such that a equals 1/3. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at number 3. These are getting a little bit crazier now. Again, I still start with the same things. I'm going to draw the line down from my equal sign. But here I notice that I have a 5 here next to the parentheses. So we're going to distribute this 5 and rewrite our expression. So we'll have 7x's come down. Then we have 5 times x, which is 5x's. 5 times -1 is -5. On the other side of our equation, we're going to have -5 plus 12x's. Now we can combine like terms on the left side of our equation. We have 7x's and 5x's, which is 12x's minus 5 is equal to -5 plus 12x's. Now our goal is to get the variables on the same side so we can solve. So I'm going to subtract 12x's from both sides of our equation. You might be able to see this already, but the 12x's will simplify out to 0 on both sides, so we get -5 equals -5. Well, this is always true, which means no matter what number I substitute in for x, this will always work. And so our possible answers for x would be all real numbers, which is that special R with the 2 lines, and we just put it inside the braces for set notation. So all real numbers. Number 4, so I'm going to draw my line down from my equal sign again, and on both sides we have distributive property. We're going to distribute the 7 here and the -2 here. So I'm going to do that at the same time. 7 times n is 7n's. 7 times -1 is -7. And now distributing my -2 to 3, that would be -6. And -2 times n is -2n. So here we're going to get the variable to the same side. So I'm going to add two n's to both sides of our equation. So all the n's are gone on the right side of our equation. On the left we have 9n's minus 7 equals negative 6. Now we're going to add 7 to both sides to undo the subtraction of 7. And that gives us 9n's is equal to 1. Now we're going to divide by 9 to get n by itself. And so we have here n is equal to 1/9. So in set notation, we have the set that, such that n is equal to 1/9. And you're going to see this crazy brace trying to fit in there. So equal to 1/9. And there's some scribbles. Okay. Let's move on to number 5. Still doing the same things. Here we're again going to need to distribute, since we have a 6 next to our parentheses on the left side of our equation and a 2 next to the parentheses on the right side of our equation. So we're going to distribute the 6, so we get 6y, and distribute the 6 to the negative 5, so negative 30. And now we'll distribute the 2 to the 10, which is going to give us 20, and the 2 to the 3y's, which will give us 6y's. Next thing is we want to get the y's to the same side, so I'm going to subtract 6y's from both sides of our equation. And here all of our y's are eliminated, so we have negative 30 equals 20. Wait, negative 30 does not equal 20, so this is a no solution. There's no solution to this equation. And we write that as an empty brace. So no solution. Okay, number 6. Same thing. We're going to go ahead and write a line down from the equal sign. And I'm going to get k's to the same side, since there's no distributive property. And I'm going to go with the smaller one, so 3.2k. I'm going to subtract. I can write it, 3.2k. So I'll subtract again, 3.2k. And that gives us, no k's on the left, so we get negative 4.3. On the right, 12.6k's minus 3.2k's will give us 9.4k's plus 14.5. Next up, we're going to subtract 14.5 to get k closer to being by itself. And since these are both negatives, we're just adding them and keeping the sign. So this is a negative 18.8 equals 9.4k. And then we can divide by 9.4 to get k by itself, or isolated. And we end up with negative 2 is equal to k. So writing it in set notation, the set k such that k equals negative 2, and then we close with our brace. Okay, for these last 3 problems, we want to find the least common denominator. Now the denominator is the bottom number in a fraction, so 4 and 6 would be our first 2 denominators. The least means the smallest number possible that we can find that they have in common. So to find a least common denominator, we just start by counting by 4s, since that's our first denominator. So 4, 8, 12, 16, we'll stop there. And then we count by 6s, so 6, 12, and there we go. We already found what they have in, the smallest number they have in common. It's 12. So this is our least common denominator. So we're going to do the same thing with number 8. So we have 5 and 4. So counting by 5, so you got 5, 10, 15, 20. And then 4s, we go 4, 8, 12, 16, and then we have 20. So they have 20 in common. That's the least, or the lowest number that they have in common. So 20 is our least common denominator. On number 9, we're looking at 7 and 14. Well, 7 and then the next number we would count by 7s would be 14. That's the same as 14. So 14 here is going to be our least common denominator. This concludes Lesson 1-6 Warm-Up for Secondary 1 Math.